Hi, this is Mike Dilke with the Relaxback UK show on UK Health Radio, your global real feel-good radio station. On the Relaxback UK show, we explore all kinds of health topics, so keep listening and enjoy the ride. Yes, hi, and welcome to the Relaxback UK show with me, Mike Dilke. A fantastic show lined up for you this week. Doran Binder is a man on a mission and with a lot of energy to make it happen.
So after about 3 or 4 months of bottling it, I'm going out selling it, and everywhere I go, people are like, wow, I didn't know water could taste like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, and that's interesting.
Doran ended up owning a pub via a different sort of route. It wasn't really his plan. The pub has its own water supply, which he is now bottling and selling, and he's become a water expert, and the whole experience has set him off on a fantastic journey. This is the first of 2 episodes with Doran. The next one is going to be a water tasting. He actually sent me a load of different waters in bottles, lots of different sorts of water in bottles, and me tasting that and him taking me through it. There's a video on that. I found the whole thing absolutely fascinating, and that will be the topic of the show next week. Before we get on with the show, I just want to blow the trumpet a little bit of UK Health Radio, and to some extent the trumpet of this show, the Relaxback UK show. UK Health Radio is now in its 11th year of broadcasting 24/7 and is firmly established as the world's #1 talk health radio station. And sponsorship of UKHR really guarantees sponsors repeated opportunity to maximise brand awareness on a national and global basis. A new alliance with Audio Boom means that all the UK Health Radio shows are available on the world's most popular podcast platforms. So check out what else is on offer on UK Health Radio once you've listened to this episode, of course. So on with Doran Binder's story. I asked him how he went from the fast-paced world of fashion to running a pub with its own water supply.
Oh, Mike, I wish I knew. It's like I've been taken on this journey that's just turned my life on its head, and I'm just so grateful. So basically the story is 2016, unfortunately, I had to get divorced. And I needed somewhere to live that was near my children. There was a pub 900 meters away from our family home that had been failing for about 10 years. But it was a beautiful property. So I spoke to the owners, and they were desperate to get out. And I thought it could be perfect. I'm teetotal. I've never drunk alcohol in my life. So I'm not a fan of pubs. But this being a failing one attracted me in a beautiful site near my children. And I thought it would make a great base for me to live. I thought I'll run the pub for a year, see how it goes before we make any decisions on it, see how viable it isn't. The people I bought it from were cash only, and they didn't really have books on it. They just told me it was failing and it had no future. So I was quite pleased with that. And I made them an offer. They accepted it. And I thought I'll run it for a year. I'll get a manager in, get somebody to live here. They can run it, see what we do. And then in a year's time, make a decision. So at the time I'm working in New York, so I'm commuting backwards and forwards. And on one of my trips back to the UK, somebody told me just by complete coincidence, said, you need to get your water tested at the pub because you've got your own water supply and you're a commercial property. And I went, no. And they went, yeah. And I thought, oh, God, here we go. So because the pub's 300 years old, it doesn't matter what you do here. It's about 10 grand. So I've hung a picture before and you end up with 10 grand's worth of damage, because you've got 300 years of bodging history in this building. Sure. So anytime I think of a job, it's 10 grand comes to my head.
Did you even know the pub had its own water supply at this stage? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. But everybody locally has their own water supply because we're off grid in effect. We're in the Peak District. We're in a little village called Wild Boar Clough. So everybody's off grid. We have electricity, but there's no gas, there's no water. So everyone has their own supplies. So that's all I knew. So that's pretty common around here. We had our own spring 900 meters away, but every time it rained, the water would come out brown and it was muddy, horrible water. So I just assumed it was all the same water. So I invited Blair Water around. They're a company in Port Shrigley locally in the Peak District, and they've been testing the water for 20 years. So I thought they'd better come round and tell me what's going on with it. And that's all I knew. It was just the water supplying the pub. I didn't know anything else at that point about water. Or actually, all I knew at that point about water, Mike, was that if I walked into my grandparents' house in Edgware, North London, with a bottle of water, my nana would rip it out of my hand, throw it in the bin, and tell me there's nothing wrong with tap. So at that point, that's all I knew about water in my life, okay, which was nothing. So Richard Taylor walks in through that door there, October 2017, and he opened the door and he pointed at me and he went, "Oh, do you know how good your water is, mate?" And I went, "No." And he said, "I told Ian and Janet for 20 years they should be bottling it and selling it, and they ignored me." And I went, "Random." I said, "How do you know the water's so good?" He said, "I'm a geologist. I've been drilling water all over the world for 40 years. It's the best water I've ever drilled by a mile. It's a complete fluke. You've hit a vein of gold coming off Shetlands Low, which is the hill that we're at the bottom of. There's nothing geologically to indicate good water in this area, but you just happen to hit a vein of gold." And I went, "Right." I said, "Well, what happens next?" He said, "You'd need to get it accredited and tested. It'll cost you $5,000. It'll take a year. And at that point, I can prove whether I'm right or wrong. But until then, it's just my opinion. And you can't do anything with that." And that one conversation, Mike, was like a frying pan around the back of my head. It's like it just excited me. See, I don't know, hopefully you've never been through a divorce, and hopefully you never will go through a divorce, but it's pretty grim, especially when there's children involved. It's just such a low moment in my life. And that one conversation with Richard kind of reinvigorated me and made me tingle with excitement. And I'd been so flipping low for so long. And I was like, wow, how powerful was that conversation? And I thought, okay, well, Richard's testing the water. And I thought, well, if he's right, I've got a debt to Mother Nature here, because basically potentially saved my life. And because I was that low, I was just drifting around in jet lag and in a fog really of mess.
So were you still working in fashion at this point as well?
Yeah, well, it was hair. So I was involved in hair. So I'm still commuting backwards and forwards, which means I've got loads of spare time in airports and hotels. And I'm a brilliant daydreamer. I think daydreaming is such an important thing in life. You know, we completely underestimate the power of daydreaming, and it's something that should be nurtured. So I'm a brilliant daydreamer, and I love it. And I would just sit around playing with ideas in my head and different concepts. And I thought, actually, do you know what? If Richard's right about this water, I'll make sure that everything we do with this water from this point onwards, if he's right, is as environmentally friendly as possible. So reusable glass bottles only. We deliver in crates. The bottles are washed and reused. And what got me onto that journey was the insanity of single-use glass and single-use plastic, which it just should be illegal, especially single-use glass, because I've got bottles that are 4 or 5 years in circulation. They're still working. They still look brand new. But we use a glass bottle once and we put it in a grey bin and we pat ourselves on the back like we've done something heroic and miraculous. We use the bottle once and we put it in a grey bin. Well, that bottle then gets transported somewhere, crushed somewhere, and turned back into what it was in the first place, which to me is embarrassing. And we should do something about that.
Put like that, it really is kind of bonkers, isn't it?
It's insane, especially when you consider, Mike, that 30 years ago, this was normal reusing glass bottles. It's only the last 30 years we've moved away from reusing to recycling. And to me, I just don't understand the point. So for me, I thought, right, well, if Richard's right, it's going to be reusable glass bottles only. And that then made me realize and learn through that journey that actually a lot of people who drink bottled water buy it in plastic because glass is much heavier to carry. So people are default buying plastic because they have no choice, because they can't carry glass from the supermarket to the car. And I thought, well, if we did it in a reusable crate and we delivered it to people's doors and they subscribe to it to 1 crate minimum every 4 weeks and we pick up the empties and they're washed and reused, would that work? And what it's taught me is that if you come up with an environmentally friendly initiative that is more convenient and equally priced, people switch automatically because you've given them a solution to a problem. And that's been... Sorry.
I totally get that. Let's just rewind a little bit to this water testing. So your water tester said, right, you've got to wait a year. So what presumably the results were good, but can you give a kind of a bit more detail other than the results were good?
Well, interestingly, so after about 3 months of Richard coming into my life, and I'm working on this reusable concept in my head, working on, just in case he's right, that's what I'm going to do with it. And then Blue Planet came out on BBC.
Right.
And I'm watching Blue Planet at home, upstairs, thinking, "Oh my God, this is incredible. This is raising awareness in a level that's never happened before." And then 2 weeks later, Sky Plastic in the Oceans came out. And I'm watching these programs thinking, if Richard's right and I get to launch this product in this environmentally friendly way, the timing is absolutely perfect. Is he right? At the time, I still didn't know if he's right or not. So in the back of my mind, I don't know how you are, but I kind of like to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So I was kind of hoping that Richard was right, but prepared that it all sounds too good to be true. And that's how I approached the whole thing, because bottling water does sound crazy. And then he rang me February 2018. I'm in New York, and he rings me up and he tells me, he said, "I've got the results." And he starts reeling off numbers. And I went, "Richard, stop. It doesn't mean anything to me." And he said, "Okay, trust me, hand your notice in now, get a taxi to the airport, sell everything you own, borrow everything you can borrow, and get bottling this water because it will fly." And I went, "I'm in." And I did.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
And it kind of came at the perfect time in my life, and that's kind of the other thing it's taught me, is that timing is so important on these little adventures that we go on. And if you time it right, which is luck, I've had so many that I've timed wrong over the last 40 years. Don't worry about that. So it's nice to get one right, timing wise, which is magnificent.
The timing was brilliant. I mean, you could argue it was luck, but you do make your own luck, or you have to be in the right frame of mind to take advantage of the luck when it comes your way. So it sounds like you were, and you jumped on it.
Yeah, I jumped on it, but it was almost, for me, it was I suppose it's part of my journey where I was in my life at the time. I needed it, Mike. I needed to cleanse myself of everything. I needed to sell everything I owned. I needed no reminders of my previous life. And it kind of helped me on that journey of self-cleansing and coming through the other side with a completely unexpected, risky adventure that I firmly believed in. From day one, I knew this would not fail. I knew it would work. I knew the only reason it would fail would be me. I was the weakest link in the operation. And that's kind of how I approached it.
You got a pub with a back room and a load of water bubbling up. Did you have to pump it up, or does it just kind of bubble up out the ground? How does it work?
No, so we are the water source that we have here is an underground aquifer, and it's 27 meters below where I stand now, where I'm talking to you. And we're at the bottom of a valley. So basically, what happens in the world of naturally occurring water, that when it rains, the rain soaks into the ground. Yeah. And the ground obviously has minerality and geology. So as that water's soaking through the ground, it's being filtered by Mother Nature. And at the same time as it's being filtered by Mother Nature, it's picking up the geology, the minerality that's in the local geology, which is why all of these naturally occurring waters are different and unique. So just like with wine, where you get terroir, you can have two identical grapevines growing in completely different fields, yielding different flavor wine due to the minerality in the soil that the roots are absorbing. And this is exactly the same principle in naturally occurring water. It's just no one flipping talks about it, which makes it so incredible. And that's why they are different.
Right. So you pump it up, or it bubbles up. What? Sorry.
No. So it's 27 meters below the ground. So so basically there's a 27 meter 6-inch diameter hole that's drilled in. The whole thing's encased, so it's sealed off. There's no oxygen and there's no daylight down there. So basically what happens is, as soon as we open a tap in this building, we have a pressure vessel in the building. As soon as the pressure in the vessel drops, it fires the pump at the bottom of the borehole and pumps it into the building. So the building's literally 5 meters away from the source. Yeah. And that's kind of how it works.
Right. So you kind of had this water which you could turn a tap on, but what do you do next? Because presumably you didn't have any bottles. You didn't, you didn't know about bottling and refilling and purification. It seems like quite a steep learning curve.
Yeah, no, massive learning curve. So I reached out to a company called the Fine Water Society, who are based in America, and they run fine waters. And again, they're another big water specialist company. And I reached out to a few people that was so good to me and held my hand. And without them, I wouldn't have done it. So there's Blair Water that without them, I wouldn't have done it. Fine Water Society. But a key part in all of this was I started bottling it, and I'm on my own, Mike. So I'm washing bottles by hand. Day one, 75 grand, by the way, just to get in the game. Equipment, bottles, crates, bits and pieces. And
this is still just bottling by hand, is it? That amount of money?
Yeah,
you kind of literally...
Me on my own. Me washing bottles by hand for the first 2 years on my own in that room, doing a milk round 3 nights a week because I ran out of money. So I needed to work 3 nights a week so I could keep in the game and just keep it ticking over. So I didn't take a wage, and I'm kind of just rolling it over, a bit like a lottery win, really. Just keep rolling it over and hoping that one day it's going to grow. So after about 3 or 4 months of bottling it, I'm going out selling it, and everywhere I go, people are like, wow, I didn't know water could taste like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, and that's interesting. So I'm like playing along with it, learning. And then a company called Salacious Drinks, Washington, D.C., an online water boutique, got in touch with me July 2018. And they got in touch and they said, Mike, they sell the finest waters in the world. We'd love to try your water. And I just thought, oh, no, this is where I get rumbled. This is the end of the journey. Honestly, that's exactly what I thought. And I was scared to send them the water. Anyway, so I sent them a box of water. And then a week later, we had a Skype meeting, and they said it's one of the finest waters they'd ever tasted. And I went, F off. Are you mad? And they went, no. And I'm like, why? And they started explaining why. And at that point, I realized now I need to study. I need to understand, because water is clearly not water. And I've learned that now the hard way. Mm-hmm. And now I need to understand why and what makes water different. And that was the beginning of me certifying to become a sommelier.
Right.
A water sommelier.
Yeah. So we spoke a little bit about you becoming a sommelier last time. Give us a potted version of that. But then more importantly, go on to just explain sort of why some waters are better than others, and why you like your particular water, and why other people seem to as well.
Okay, so if we just start with the difference, then, well, what's the difference between tap water and naturally occurring water? So a quick word on tap water. So tap water, reservoir water, surface water, rainwater, flush your toilet water, borehole water, any water they can get hold of, basically. That water is then filtered at the waste treatment plants and then blended in laboratories with fluoride and chlorine, depending on whether there's fluoride added in your local region in England or not. Interestingly enough, in Scotland, it's deemed mass medication. They took it to court. So fluoride cannot be added in Scotland, which I think is very interesting, that our nearest neighbour deem it mass medication. But in England, 9 million people are exposed to fluoride in their water, and the local water companies can add it at any point on the recommendation of the local environmental health agency, and they can add up to 1 milligram per litre. So fluoride occurs naturally and fluoride occurs unnaturally. So naturally occurring fluoride, as an example, in our water is at 0.06 milligrams per litre, just to give you an idea. And the water companies can add up to 1 milligram per litre on the advice of the local environmental health agency. And I just think consumers should be made aware in the local region, if fluoride is being added, they should be made aware that we are now adding fluoride to your water, because at the moment they can do it and not notify anybody.
Yeah.
Which I think
possibly also made aware of the bonus that fluoride does to keeping your health, stopping your teeth rotting as well. You know, they should.
Well, it's interesting because, I'm not for or against fluoride. I just know that there is massive division around fluoride. And I just think it should be a debate, and we should be aware. So I'm not for or against. I'm not a scientist. I don't know, but I know there are people who are really passionate about it. So that's basic. So basically, the tap water is processed water, municipal chlorinated tap water. The chlorine is in the water purely to kill the bacteria in the water. It's there for no other reason. So that's municipal chlorinated tap water.
However, naturally, you should just point out killing the bacteria in the water. Probably a good thing.
Yeah, but having water that tastes and smells of a swimming pool probably isn't.
Yeah, probably one. It's hard to have. Might be hard to have one without the other. But certainly, we've all drunk. I think we've all drunk water from a tap and thought, "Oh, this is a bit chlorine today," and it's not as nice. There's no question about that.
Correct. So the answer to that is naturally occurring water, which doesn't have the bacteria in it and doesn't have the chlorine in it. So that's kind of really the difference. So that's tap water, processed water. Naturally occurring water is the organic version of water, which is untouched by man. So as we explained before, the water rains, it gets filtered by the local geology, picks up minerality, and is filtered and blended by Mother Nature, bottled at the source, controlled by local environmental health agency and trading standards. So they're the differences. Now, any bottled water in the UK that doesn't say natural mineral or spring, because they are the only three words that are protected. So if it doesn't say natural mineral or spring, it could be anything. So, and this is something when I found out is critical, because if we're buying bottled water that is filtered tap, aka purified water, we're being ripped off. We can filter tap at home. We don't need to be buying plastic bottled filtered tap water, which in my opinion should probably even be illegal, because what's the point? It's just misleading and people are not aware. And that's kind of my message, just making sure that people know if you're buying bottled water, natural mineral and spring is the premium of the category. It's the whole point, so that people can identify what's the difference between them. It's just nobody seems to know what these words mean.
No.
And that's thanking you for spreading that message.
That. Have you got any idea how much bottled water that's sold, in the UK, that is not natural mineral or spring? So it just comes out of a tap somewhere and put in a bottle.
Okay, well, first of all, nobody admits that they take it out of a tap and they put it into a bottle. It's all smoke and mirrors. So this is why I think it's so important that we now raise awareness of the most important liquid on the planet to human beings, especially in a country like ours where we are blessed with naturally occurring water sources. We have enough rain to have, beautiful water. So we just need to be aware, but it's almost like we're starved by only fools and horses. Peckham Springs, mate, water's water, innit? And I hear that all the time, and it's not true. That's the frustrating thing. It's just not true. It's, water is not water.
Let's talk about the taste a little bit. So the water that you have, it's in an aquifer. It goes across rocks and picks up minerals. What sort of rocks does it go over? And, what sort of minerals does it pick up?
Okay, brilliant question. So minerality is everything when it comes to water. I used to think that pH was the important driver. It's not, because our skin is 7.5. The acidic parts of our gut could be 1. So when people get obsessed with pH, or some people are obsessed with high alkaline water, which is just a complete marketing scam. So TDS, total dissolved solids, is the driver of taste, flavor in water. What is total dissolved solids? So they take a liter of the water, they boil it, and the white powder at the end of that evaporation process is the measurement of minerality of the water. So let's start with distilled water has a measurement of 0 TDS. It's just H2O, which is why it's great for your car battery, but not very good for the human body. So if we start with Loredana, which has a TDS, total dissolved solids, of 14, tells you on the label. They call themselves a mineral water, which in my opinion is completely misleading, because when you are basically naturally occurring distilled water, there's hardly any minerality in this water. So they shouldn't be called a mineral water, in my opinion. So what does this water taste like? So when you drink extreme low minerality water, what the water's doing when it's in your mouth, it's soaking away the lining of your mouth and it's absorbing the minerality in your body. And when you drink this water, you feel it. You can taste it. It leaves my mouth feeling dry. It's like tacky. I struggle to talk with Loredana. And what's driving that mouthfeel is that extreme low minerality. So when I'm talking to you now, my lips are dry, top of my tongue and the top of my mouth are dry, and it's really hard for me to speak. And that's what extreme low minerality is. The taste of the water is crisp and sharp, but it's still a naturally occurring water, which I love. All right?
And presumably there are some people that actually like that aspect. It's like, some people like dry wine, some people like sweet wine.
Absolutely right. Now, what I find in my water tasting is that young people seem to prefer the extreme low TDS water. So another example of extreme low TDS water is Voss, which is TDS 40. So any water below 50 gives you that dry mouthfeel. But young people seem to like it. But when it comes to food pairings and water, an extreme low TDS water would be a lovely water to eat or to drink with sushi, for instance. Something really delicate flavors. It's not going to take away, because as we go up in minerality, you'll see, and I'm going to send you some bottles because you need to try these, because otherwise you think I'm loopy and mad. But when you taste it and you can taste the difference, it's actually staggering. So Loredana 14 TDS, hardly anything in it minerality-wise. Crag 120. So we're still low. This is extreme low. Now, the difference between crag and Loritana is calcium and magnesium are the main hard mineral differences. And the way that those minerals interact give crag a creamy, smooth, silky mouthfeel. And everywhere I go with it, it's the first thing people say, and it has been from day one. I didn't know water could taste like that. It's like it's silky water.
Right. I'm just going to describe what I can see at the moment, right? Because I'm loving this whole story. So you're a landlord, you're a teetotaler, you don't drink alcohol, and you're in front of your bar at the minute, and behind is just rows and rows of water bottles. It's fantastic. I just like the whole story.
Thank you, mate.
You do sell, I'm presuming you do sell alcohol at your pub as well.
The pub at the moment is open 4 hours a week. The more the pub is open, the more money you lose. So the pub, when it's open, doesn't cover the wages. So if you have one person behind the bar, the pub will not cover their wages, never mind make any money. So basically what happens with the pub is the more it's open, the more it loses, which is why the water is going to ensure the pub has a future forever. But it just won't be based on alcohol. Now, we're surrounded by pubs in the area. There's no shortage of pubs and scampi and chips, believe me. Right. They're in abundance. There's a shortage of customers, not pubs, which is why, in a way, it's kind of perfect to turn this in, because now we're going to turn this into an attraction. Yeah. So people will now come here. I do school visits now, making kids aware. It's so important. It's only the most important. Now, interesting enough, as we're talking about this now, Mike, one of the things I've discovered, and this is, to me, absolutely shocking, as we go up in minerality, it gets so exciting. But there's one water I just need to talk to you about, Shuttledon 1650. Now, this water's been bottled since 1650. And since 1650, it's been the water of the Vatican, monarchs all across Europe, politicians, business people. And before it was bottled at 1650, Roman soldiers used to fill their vessels up at the source on their way to battle because they knew this water gave them superpowers, and that's what they believed. Now, what I've learned on my journey, and one of the most amazing things, is that the elites have known about the power of naturally occurring water for hundreds of years. And I believe that we are drinking processed chlorinated swimming pool water because we've been convinced that water's water, mate, and not to give it a second thought. But yet the elites know about this and the importance and how important it is on the human body. And that leads to the second part of the whole adventure. So January last year, this book arrives in the post, The Drinking Water Cure, anonymously arrives in the post, which kind of freaked me out a little bit. I don't know if you're familiar, if you've ever read the book or heard of the book.
No, I haven't, no.
Anyway, so I read the book in a day, and I decided the next day to double my water intake as an experiment, because I now understand for the first time in my life how important water is on the human body, and I'm reading it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do an experiment. I'll go from 2 litres to 4 litres. January 22, this was, so about 14 months ago. Unbelievable. It's just absolutely staggering. And part of this, that started the journey. But what I now understand, Mike, it's absolutely clear, is that the human body can live weeks, months potentially without eating food, 2 to 3 days without water, and we are dead. Now, that to me sums up the human body's relationship with food and water. But we are trained overeaters from birth in a consumer world. So breakfast being the most important meal of the day was invented by John Harvey Kellogg in the early 19th century because he had a shed load of cornflakes to be flogging. So he invents this meal now, first thing in the day meal. Breakfast could have been at lunchtime because breakfast is obviously breaking the fast. But basically what I now understand and what I'm learning, and most of the material I've produced now, is the importance of good quality water on the human body that's made of water, which to me now is absolutely logical and makes complete sense. And I'm talking to more and more people with medical backgrounds, and this seems to be absolutely clear. It's critical, but yet no one talks about it. I've never heard anyone talking about the importance of drinking good quality water. To me, and that's where my passion comes from, because when I found this out, I thought, everybody needs to know this. This is our basic human right. We are made of water. Our brain is 70% water. We can function dehydrated, yeah? The book, all the stuff I'm reading, we can function just like a plant can survive dehydrated. But as soon as we're rehydrated, it's the most important thing to the body because it's what we're made of. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is absolutely fascinating. So I basically, after 3 months of doubling my water intake, realized that I'm now eating one meal a day because I'm not hungry anymore. I've lost 10 kilos from 96 to 86 kilos without even knowing. Nothing else changed in my life. Apart from I just learned naturally that I don't need to eat 3 meals a day. That's not how we evolved as a species. We didn't wake up thousands of years ago, what's for breakfast, love? We had to go and find it. We had to go and earn it. And that's how the body evolved. But when we now ask modern humans to go on a diet, restrict your calorie intake 3 times a day, it's doomed for failure. And I think it's deliberate failure because no one stands a chance. You can't make 3 sacrifices a day for the rest of your life. It's never going to work. Whereas now with fasting, what I'm understanding is, as OMAD, for example, 1 meal a day, I eat between 5 and 6 in the evening. I can eat whatever I want in that hour. I'm vegetarian, gluten-free, by the way. And my body is I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm 50 years old. I work out. I look after myself. I'm in the best shape of my life. And I now understand that we're trained overeaters from birth.
Right.
And we miss lunch. We miss lunch. We think we're starving, Mike. We think we deserve some sort of a medal because we miss lunch. We're starving. We can live for weeks without eating food. We've just forgotten that.
Sure. Well, certainly what is very apparent from talking to you is just how much you love water and love your water and what kind of want to spread the word and just get people talking about water. And so there's no question you've made me think differently about water. Just this idea that you've had of like the naughty corner of some, if water doesn't say natural mineral or spring on the bottle, it's probably out of a tap. So, cut out the middleman and just drink it out the tap.
Correct. So I'm going to show you some examples now of my naughty corner water. And believe it or not, it's not just the little boys that are doing this. So Lucozade Fit Water, purified electrolyte water for hydration. And at the bottom, it even tells you 0 sugar, right? This is a bottle of water, Mike.
It shouldn't have sugar in it.
Now, interestingly as well, on the label here, it tells you added chlorine. Wow. We need to start reading these things because, there's a whole story on here, but because there's no awareness about it, I never read a label in my life before I knew this. I didn't think there was anything to read. Marks and Spencer's mountain water.
It sounds like in the background, that's an order coming in for several hundred bottles of your water.
It was a phone, but they've gone away. It stopped ringing. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Marks and Spencer's mountain water. Mountain water is not. It could be anything. You might as well call it Marks and Spencer's magic water. But why are Marks and Spencer's doing this? Are they doing it because they don't know? Are they doing it because what? Why would Marks and Spencer's, the top brand, have anything for sale other than the premium of the category, natural mineral or spring water? Now, I reckon it's awareness. I reckon Marks and Spencer's potentially don't know. Now, the worst of the lot, Smart Water, okay? This is a story in itself. It tells you on the label what they do, okay? So I'm not, you can buy a bottle of Smart Water, it tells you on the label. So in the United Kingdom, what Smart Water do, owned by Coca-Cola, is they start with the spring water, and then they vaporize the spring water. They bottle the distilled vaporized water with now no minerality in it. And then they add a tiny amount of salt, call it electrolytes, and call it Smart in a plastic bottle. Now, I've done videos on this. They call it a glacial water, by the way. Smart glacial water. I've done a video and I've rang up Coca-Cola and asked them what's the connection between Smart Water and Glacier. And they admit it's pure marketing. It's definitely, I've done it's on my TikTok channel. They admit it. It's there for marketing only. Now, in the United States, what they do is they vaporize tap water. The end result is the same. So that's why Coca-Cola do it, because they want you, where it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you buy a bottle of Smart Water and it tastes the same rubbish. And that's what they want. They want you to think that water's water, mate. Don't give it a second thought. And that's a smart bottle of water. Well, it's anything but smart. I spend a lot of time calling out Buxton Water, owned by Nestle. So one of the conditions of natural mineral and spring is that you bottle at the source. Nestle pump that 3 miles from the source at St. Anne's to the bottling plant. Now, the whole point of the regs is so that the consumer is aware of the premium of the category, natural mineral and spring. If the regs state you have to bottle at source, Why on earth are these people allowed to pump it 3 miles before it goes in a bottle? So awareness, Mike. That's all I want to do now is spread the word so people know what they're buying.
Lots of questions, lots of interesting stuff. But if people are listening to this and thinking, all right, I didn't know any of this, I would like to just sort of find out a bit more. I've got a feeling you might have a website that can give people a lot more information about this sort of stuff. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. So this,
what is it?
People are interested. Well, all I talk about on my social media, Bearded Water Sommelier on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, and that's all I do is I just spend every day, post 2 or 3 videos talking about what's the difference. So today I posted a video, what's the difference between natural mineral and spring water? What is the difference? The difference is nothing. The difference is tiny. To call yourselves a mineral water, you just have to show 2 years worth of recording data of stable minerality, and you can change the name from spring to mineral if you wanted to do. So if I wanted to call Crag mineral water, not Crag spring water, I would just do that. It would probably take me 2 or 3 weeks to do that. However, because we are low TDS, to me, we're a spring water. We're not a mineral water. Sure. The same with Loredana. That shouldn't be a mineral water. It's a spring water. But again, there is nobody policing the regulations. Nobody. And I find that absolutely fascinating.
All this is very interesting. Now, I'm going to ask, just to finish with, I'm going to ask you a question or a favour, because I think it might be fun. Maybe in the future, a few weeks, we can arrange a testing online. So
yeah, we need to,
because you said you do testing, water tastings at your pub. Perhaps we can try and do one via Zoom, because I would be fascinated, and I think that might be fun to do. But certainly for now, I've picked your brains, your water brains, for a while. So you're absolutely fascinating. So thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure, Mike, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to spread the word, because it's so important, and we're only made of it, and it's only the most important liquid on the planet to human beings, and we need to at least show it appreciation. So thank you.
You're extremely welcome. Thank you.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Thank you so much to my guest on the show this week, who was Doran Binder of Crag Spring Water. Absolutely wonderful story. And next week it's going to continue, because he sent me some water and we're going to have a tasting session on the show, including some Crag Spring Water, but other waters as well. So again, thank you very much to Doran, and thank you to you for listening, and have a healthy week until next week.
Was the Relaxback UK show with me, Mike Dilke. Thank you for listening, and please do join us again next time.